Thank you for joining us today for Sumud and Disability Justice in Palestine. My name is Jessica Anderson, and I'm Deputy Director of Visualizing Palestine, and I'm honored to be co-hosting our film screening of Severed today in partnership with Donkeysaddle Projects. Our program will begin shortly, starting with a screening of the film and followed by a discussion with Mohamad Saleh, Omar Daqqa, and Sarah Dababnah, who I will introduce more fully before the second half of our event. We are going to switch things up a little bit here. We're hoping that Omar will be able to connect. If you've been following the news, there was a severe winter storm that struck Gaza this week, and Omar was uncertain if he would be able to connect at all. He is on standby and trying to load the Zoom link, so we're hoping that we will have him with us today. If he joins, we're going to try and give him a question right away in case he does get connected or disconnected. And if he isn't able to join, we'll make sure to do our best to share his work with Deaf Relief Gaza. So until he jumps on, I will go ahead and introduce our event. I want to take a moment to introduce our interpretation and support team. We have Seif Saleh here today providing Palestinian Sign Language interpretation, and Danielle Couto is providing American Sign Language interpretation. We'll also be joined by Mohamad Abdeen for Arabic interpretation support, and we have Jordana Rubenstein, who is Severed's impact producer, as well as Kat Ananza, who's a program outreach coordinator with Donkeysaddle Projects, who are supporting with technical facilitation. And on screen as well right now, we have Mohamad Saleh, who is the protagonist and co-producer of Severed. And we have Sarah Dababnah, an associate professor at the University of Maryland, whose research focuses on improving the health and well-being of families of individuals with intellectual and developmental differences. And again, I'll introduce them again before our panel, as well as Omar, who is an organizer with Deaf Relief Gaza. Before we turn to the film, I want to set 3 intentions for this gathering. First, we are gathering to strengthen the connective tissue between our movements against ableism, colonialism, genocide, and other forces that deny the inherent wholeness and dignity of every person. Second, we bring to mind principles of interdependence and mutuality, which are at the heart of disability justice. In other words, we take care of each other. So therefore, we're gathered not just to learn from our speakers and from the film, but to support in any way that we can the networks of care disabled Palestinians are creating in the face of this genocide. And finally, we want to honor and remember the people, places, livelihoods, memories, and dreams that have been destroyed during the ongoing Israeli genocide in Gaza. And we recognize that genocide is a crime of mass disablement, and that disabled people have done and will continue to do some of the most creative and transformative work to bring about a world of collective thriving and liberation. I see that Omar has been able to join us. Omar, welcome. I'm so glad that you've been able to connect. And I want to start with a question for you to make sure that we have a chance to hear from you in case you do get disconnected. Again, Omar Daqqa is an organizer with Deaf Relief Gaza, a grassroots mutual aid effort supporting the urgent needs of deaf youth in Gaza. Omar, a recent caption on a post on Deaf Relief Gaza's Instagram page shared a simple and very powerful message from the deaf community in Gaza. Don't forget, we are here and we will thrive. Today, you are here despite the days of very brutal winter storms in Gaza that have brought freezing temperatures, heavy rain, flash flooding, wind, and hail. So I just want to first ask how you're doing and what does your work on the ground look like right now, especially in the midst of winter in Gaza?
First of all, Bismillah. I'm doing great. Thank you. Alhamdulillah, everything's good. My family is good. The tent is good. Alhamdulillah. Now I'm watching a lot of diff people having a lot of difficult situations, and I know, and everybody knows that the main problem in Gaza is the tents and how the water is floating, and people trying to help each other during this situation. And I actually trying to manage my time to help everyone and to be with you guys today and at this panel. But again, it's really difficult, and we are trying to do our best to survive in this situation. So yeah, that's how I am doing. So what was the second question, Jessica?
So the second part of the question is if you can just share a little bit more about what Deaf Relief Gaza's work on the ground with deaf youth it looks like right now and in, the last couple of years.
Yeah, now it's clear. Yeah. He said, actually, we were planning to do a lot of activities with our organization, and because of the situation, the weather, and all the things that happening, the rain, we are trying actually to cover it in tents. We tried to postpone everything we were scheduled to do. Now, actually, everyone's sitting in their tent, trying to think what will happen now, how we can help other people after the storm. We're trying to make a lot of ideas about the abilities, about what the resources we have, and how can we use these resources to do something to help people with hearing disability. And we know that we lost a lot of time because of the storm, and we actually want to do something. We don't want to stop because of the storm. We actually want to make a discussion to talk about how we can actually help people in this situation. We know that there is a lot of things that we postpone, but that doesn't mean that we have to stop because we actually making our mind busy of how people living right now because of the storm. Are they cold? Do they need food? Do they need a gasoline because they want to make a fire or something to warm them up? We are actually trying to think about that and how we can help them during this storm. Not only people with hearing disability, not only the deaf community, we are actually trying to reach out to people from all the places in Gaza and every place we actually can reach out to. I'm asking for everyone to help us to help them because we know and we witness what is happening. And there's a lot of tents that's really old and it's really crumbs because of the rain, because of the sun, and it's actually now feels like it's have a lot of dust in it and on it. I'm sorry. And now because of that, the tent start to collapse. People actually can't sleep because of the cold, and they have all their clothes wet, and with the wet, with the rain, and with the cold, and with the wind, it's really cold. So I don't think that any other country have this situation except of Gaza.
Absolutely, yeah. It's clear that, the urgent need now for tents, shelter, warm clothes, food, fuel, all of that very urgent. One of the things that you've shared on Deaf Relief Gaza's page is how many members of the deaf community have struggled to access aid. Um, and we know that it has been very dangerous for everyone to try and access aid, but particularly for people with hearing disabilities and deaf people, what are some of the things that you have seen and stories that you've heard from your community in terms of getting people access to the support that they need?
As a deaf community, it's really challenging and it's really hard for us to get all the supplies. For example, a blanket, whatever things that we have to wear, clothes, and it's really hard for the people with no disability. So it's actually harder for us as people with hearing disability. I'm asking how we can actually do this, how we can actually bring all these stuff that we need, how we can buy it if we can or if there is any to buy. And actually, I am trying to connect with people with hearing disability, with the deaf community. We're actually trying to make jokes about this, like, oh yeah, we remember like last year we struggled like this. We hope to do so, and we hope to actually try to survive like how we did last year. And we're actually trying to convince ourselves, like, yeah, I'm actually not a summer guy. I am a winter guy, and I like the winter, I like the cold. But actually, deep down, we know that it's really, really hard. This is one of the stories that we actually saw and witnessed how people are convincing ourselves with lies and convincing ourselves with that we actually love the situation we are in just because we want to feel some relief and relieving each other. But we're actually not giving up. We're actually not going to let all the situation control us. We have to control it instead. So I hope that we can do something about it.
Thank you so much, Omar. I mean, the courage and the creativity that you're expressing are immense, and at the same time, we recognize the intensity of the struggle, what you're going through in winter, and this psychologically the difficulty too of supporting each other. And I want to drop in the chat now a couple of links of ways that you can support Deaf Relief Gaza and Omar and his family. So I will be dropping those in the chat. Omar, is there anything else you would like to say now about ways of supporting Deaf Relief Gaza and the deaf community?
I really want to tell all the people that watching us right now and everyone who actually saw what we are talking about. I really want you to continue supporting us on your Instagram page, on your whatever methods or whatever the way you actually can to help us, who actually connect with where our organization. I'm sorry. So I just want to make the idea is clear. He said, yeah, the organization that I'm sorry. He said, yeah. Again, he said that there is a lot of ways that you can actually help us and actually help us to continue our work. So it's just easy to go in our Instagram page and you're gonna find the link that you're gonna use to support us. And I'm saying, like, everyone who watching us right now, if you're a deaf community or not, you have to try to actually reach or share our struggle. You're actually watching what's happening in Gaza. You have to do something for them. You actually have to tell people and try to tell everyone in the world about our struggling because we are not talking about any community. We're talking about disability. We're talking about deaf community. And it's really, really painful for us watching how the situation turning down every time and people actually trying to support each other because as a deaf community we know the struggling that we faces. We have to be together, we have to be once. We have to be one, I'm sorry. And actually, again, as I said before, we are trying to be creative, to know how we actually going to face these situations. We have to spotlight about the things that are actually happening. I know we have to be together. I know that we have to do a lot of things. Now, if we are talking about going to restaurant to have a meal, or if we are going to shop to buy a clothes or something, this is actually a dream for us right now, and you know it. Once you know it, you know what you're gonna do. You have to support us, because supporting us means that you're supporting people in Gaza. We have to do, you have to do so, because we are actually getting power because of you. We're actually getting stronger because of you. So please hear me out and listen to me, and thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Omar. I want to say that we hear you. We hear the call that you're making, and we are all committed to taking an active role. We're so grateful that we've been able to connect through this, and find out more about ways that we can support your efforts and the collective care that you're building there. I I want to turn to the film now.
I'm
Oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
Omar saying. I actually want to thank every one of you guys, because you spotted the light about our situation. And thank you, Jessica, specifically for the opportunity you gave me.
It's our honor, Omar, truly, and we're glad you're able to connect. We hope that we'll be able to continue the conversation with you after the film, if you're able to stay connected. All right,
No problem at all. Thank you so much.
thank you. And now I want to hand over to Jordana to introduce the film.
Um, Omar, it was so great to get to see you and learn a little bit about your story. I'm excited that we'll be watching Severed today, which is a film that's co produced and shares the story of Mohamad Saleh, who's here. And we'll watch it on our own, um, with a YouTube link that I'll drop in the chat in a moment. So we'll watch the film on our own, and then we'll come back together after watching the film and have a little bit more discussion with Mohamad and also Sarah, um, about the film, about what disability justice in Palestine means and looks like, what it means for all of us on the call. Um, so Mohamad, if there's, and Mohamad, hi, Mohamad will be supporting with Arabic translation. Mohamad, is there anything you want to say as an introduction to the film? And Mohamad, if you want to translate that question to Arabic for Mohamad, you can.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. So good evening everyone. Good morning. محمد بتحب تشارك حاجة قبل ما نتفرج على الفيلم؟ نبذة سريعة عن الفيلم تحب تشاركنا؟
Uh, Hi everyone. Uh, I'm happy to be here and have this chance. سعيد جدا بك يا عمر، والله يهونها عليك. والوضع كارثي طبعا في غزة في ظل الأمطار، وإن شاء الله بتفرج على القريب. وسعيد بالجميع.
Thank Muhammad. Yeah, that was great English, but basically Muhammad is saying, uh, he feels for Omar and he wishes that the situation gets better for him, and he's happy that you guys joined him today, and he's ready to watch the movie with you guys. All right, back to you, Jordan.
I just dropped the YouTube link for the film in the chat. It's about 26 minutes, so we'll go off on our own and watch it, and we'll join back in about 26 minutes to have a little bit more discussion about the film.
Welcome back, everyone. We're ready to continue the second part of our program. If you can rejoin us on Zoom. In case you didn't have a chance to finish the film, As we reconvene, oh, sorry. So if you didn't have a chance to finish the film, the link will remain active after the call. So please feel free to continue sharing it onward and watching it later. And as we reconvene, I'm going to drop in the chat two Visualizing Palestine visuals that build on some of the themes of the film and the conversation that we're having here today. The first is called Severed Steps, and it looks at children who've had amputations in Gaza. And the second is called Let the Carpenter's Hands Speak, and it is the story of Hashem Ghazal, a deaf community activist in Gaza who dedicated his life to building up resources for the deaf community and who was killed during the genocide. I also want to mention that if you have questions, please go ahead and use the Q&A function to drop your questions in, and we will try and bring those up to our panelists. So with that, I'm honored to introduce our guests. We have Mohamad Saleh, who is the protagonist and co-producer of Severed. He is 19 years old and lived his entire life in Jabalia, northern Gaza, surviving every Gaza war until escaping the genocide in May 2024. Mohamad just completed his high school matriculation exams and plans to study nursing, and he's an intern at Donkeysaddle Projects. We also have Sarah Dababnah. Sarah is an associate professor at the University of Maryland whose research focuses on improving the health and well-being of families of individuals with intellectual and developmental differences. And as well, we have Omar Daqqa with us still. And so I would want to turn first to Mohamad and say thank you, first of all, for sharing your story in this powerful and profound film. As I just mentioned, since filming, you've completed your Tawjihi graduation exams, Alf Mabruk, and you've shared your story and your family's story with thousands of people. Can you share a little bit about what it has been like to see this film shared out with the world and to connect your story to the disability justice movement?
محمد جيسكا بتقول لك شكرا ان انت شاركت قصتك مع العالم كله. وكمان من ساعة ما ابتديت الفيلم انت خلصت امتحاناتك التوجيهية وشاركت قصتك مع العالم كله وقصة عائلتك مع آلاف الأشخاص حوالين العالم. شعورك ازاي لما الفيلم اتعرض للناس كلها، وكمان اتصال قصتك مع قصة حركة العدالة المتعلقة بالإعاقة؟
أنا ما شاركت بس قصتي، أنا شاركت كل طفل غزاوي، كل إنسان في غزة عانى من البتر ولا عانى من الإعاقة. مش بس محمد اللي عاش هذه القصة، ولا محمد بس اللي مر في الظروف هذه فقد أهله. لا لا بالعكس، يعني لو قد تعمل إحصائية هتلاقي من كل عيلة هتلاقي فيه محمد نفس قصة بالضبط. وأنا برضه حبيت أشارك قصتي، تشوف المعاناة اللي في غزة، وتشوف اللي حصل فينا في غزة وبالأبرياء وبالأطفال. يعني اللي عشناه مش سهل. أخ يا مهند قديش تنسى.
لا لا عادي. لا خلينا. So Muhammad is saying basically inside every single family in Gaza, there's a Muhammad. It's not just him. Statistically, there has been a lot of people that have lost limbs or have been disabled because of the war in Gaza. He's saying his case is not just him. It's what popular in Gaza to actually have families who have two people have lost limbs or became disabled. تفضل يا محمد.
وبرضه أنا يعني مبسوط إنه الرفيق يعني وصل للعالم، إنه يعني ما بدي أنسى إخواتي، ما بدي أنسى الأصدقاء اللي استشهدوا. يعني ذكرهم بتضلها خالدة في القلوب. يعني هدول مش أشخاص اللي فقدتهم، ولا هدول يعني مش يعني أرقام، مش أرقام زي ما بقول الجيش الإسرائيلي، وزي 70,000 شهيد صار في غزة. يعني مش أرقام هذول. يعني ما كان عندهم أحلام طموحات، كانوا بيتعلموا وبيدرسوا، كانوا بدهم يصيروا إشي في المستقبل. بس الاحتلال الإسرائيلي ما خلاش عندهم أحلام ولا طموحات ولا أشياء، كله أخذوا الاحتلال.
So my friends, they're not just numbers. They are people who had dreams, who had wishes to live a better life. But the IDF, the Israeli military, does not see them like that. Um, again, he feels like their story are not being shared with the world. Hold on.
تمام.
That's it. Back to you, Jessica.
Thank you for sharing that, Mohammed. And you're so right. Yes, there was so much in your story that um, spoke to the story of everyone in Gaza right now. And obviously, every person's experience is unique, but also it captured, I think, so succinctly through your own lens what has happened in the last 2+ years. And also before that, um, your story begins before the last 2 years, and I think that's very important as well. I'll pause there if you
انت
want to.
قصتك يا محمد ما ابتدتش. اه ثانكس جاستي. قصتك ما ابتدتش بس من السنتين اللي قبل فاتت، ابتدت من زمان قبل الحرب كمان. فانت قصتك
هي المعاناة الفلسطينية
آه،
من
بت...
زمان، المعاناة الفلسطينية مش من سنتين ولا من يوم ما محمد اتصاب في 2018. من السبعينات الفلسطينيين مهجرين وبعانوا، وكل يوم قتل وتشريد وإصابات. مش يعني قصتي بدأت من
yeah,
2018.
our suffering did not start in 2018. It started in the 70s actually. We've had a long time of suffering.
My next question I wanted to ask you is about your role co-producing the film. Um, can you share a little bit more about what co-producing was like for you and the creative process of shaping how you told your story?
محمد، انت ما كنتش بس في الفيلم، بس انت برضو ساعدت انتاجه. ممكن تحكي لنا عن تجربتك في انتاج هذا الفيلم؟ وكمان قصة ازاي قدرت تقول قصة حياتك عن طريق هذا الفيلم.
إيه، الفيلم بدينا فيه، كنت عامل عملية هنا في مصر، أمبيوتيشن، عملية بتر. فساعتها فقدت أخ عزيز على قلبي اسمه محمد نافع. كان معايا في توجيه المفروض واستشهد واحنا بنعمل في الفيلم. ففقدته، فما حبيته. يعني كان شعور سيء انك قاعد انت بتوصف الفيلم، بس هذا مش فيلم، هذا فيلمك، حياتك انت قاعد بتعمل في حياتك. يعني انت مش طبيعي انك انا وانت بتعمل فيلم. يعني كنت بعمله وكنت، يعني جن ما جابتش التصوير كاملا، كنت بعيط ما بعد الفيلم. يعني كل ما أعرض صورة، كل ما أجيب صورة، كل ما أرى مشاهد الشهداء وأحبابي وأخواتي، أبكي. ما أقدرش أعمل إشي، بس في نفس الوقت كنت مبسوط إنه العالم هيشوفهم، هيعرفهم، إنهم مش هينتسيوا.
So I was actually in Cairo for an amputation surgery, and then I was filming my friends, and I had a friend who actually passed away. His name is Mohamad Nafa, and then I was happy that their stories will not be forgotten because I have I have my camera. I'll be filming them. I'll be filming that experience, and I'll be ultimately sharing that with the rest of the world.
Last question I want to ask you, Mohammed, before we turn to Sarah, is as you said in the film, one of your dreams was to graduate, and now you have. And so, where are you now? Are you studying? And how has that been?
محمد، انت قلت في الفيلم ان انت حلمك كان كنت تتخرج. دلوقتي الحمد لله انت اتخرجت. ايه بقى الخطوة الجاية اللي انت بتتمناها؟
خلينا أحكيها بالإنجليزي.
يلا.
آه، I finished for توجيهي, but now I am studying the University AUS, Cairo. I am learning English. Inshallah, I will be in the next year. I will be inshallah. Inshallah, my dream study nurse. But inshallah, I will be study in the university next year inshallah.
Inshallah. We'll look forward to hearing more updates and following your story. Now I want to turn to Sarah. Sarah, your work focuses on individuals and families with autism and other neurodevelopmental disabilities and differences. These are sometimes referred to as invisible or less visible disabilities. Can you tell us more about what that means, especially in the context of Palestine?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I want to thank you for inviting me. It's really an honor to share the space with such incredible co-panelists and Elsma Brogia Mohammed. Their English is
Pleasure.
amazing. I look forward to seeing all that you can do. Um, but regarding your question, Jessica, I mean, I appreciate this question because when most people think about disabilities, they often picture like what they can see, but conditions like autism and other neurodevelopmental differences are just largely invisible. So there's no outward signs. It means people, which really means that people, face misunderstanding or stigma because their needs aren't that obvious to others. And throughout Palestine, I mean, especially in Gaza, but throughout all of Palestine, this invisibility is really compounded by decades of Israeli occupation and systemic barriers. So it didn't just start, like Mohammed was saying earlier, a few years ago. So the infrastructure to support people with disabilities is just deeply inadequate. For those of you who don't know, autism is a lifelong condition, and so with early and comprehensive supports, autistic children can really thrive and do great things and into adulthood. But in the context where families are just focused on like basic survival, where's my next meal? Where can I shelter from bombs? The resources for autistic people are just almost non-existent. And so when you think about the context of autistic children within a war zone, that's just really high and exceptional levels of risk. Like, kids may wander off, they may struggle to communicate, they may experience just really overwhelming sensory overload from loud sounds. They oftentimes have very specific dietary needs and just find it really hard to cope when their routines are disrupted. And so, we've seen in the case of Gaza and as well as in other contexts and crises that they could be separated from their caregivers who might be the only person who really knows how to communicate with them or knows what their needs are. People can lose access to their communication devices or their specialized foods or their medication, and this ends up in environments that are completely inaccessible. And also, just consistency and trust are really critical for autistic people, especially children. And so, like, even really small changes can trigger just very intense anxiety and harmful behaviors. And so, like I said, even before 2023, Gaza already lacked enough clinics and therapists and schools to meet the needs. But I mean, today there's nothing really available. It's just a near total collapse. And if I have a second, Jessica, I can share an example. Okay.
Absolutely.
Um, well, I mean, a story I've been, or a person I've been thinking about a lot is he's a young, non-speaking autistic boy in Gaza, and he was really thriving and doing well before the war. He attended a specialized center. He has, and had a lot of support from his parents and other dedicated therapists. And I mean, his life now is completely upended. He's injured repeated displacements. He doesn't have any therapy, he doesn't have any education. He's malnourished. He's been constantly exposed to bombs and drones and just trying to survive in a tent. His father, who was one of his primary caregivers, was very seriously injured while he was seeking food aid. His grandfather was killed. His toddler sister was wounded. And, not surprisingly, this child is showing very severe psychological distress and agitation, and he can't express that, or he can't really manage his emotions. And his parents are really desperate for help, but the typical like humanitarian mechanisms are just not well equipped to support people with disabilities in general, but including autism. And so it's really that these individuals are facing additional layers of invisibility, even within those systems that are meant to be helpful. And so, also like Mohammed was saying, like, this isn't one story, this is many stories, and it just shows how, this current genocide, but just war in general just disproportionately harms people with disabilities. And so unless we address the root causes, which in the case of Palestine are illegal occupation and systemic human rights abuses, we're just going to continue to be applying bandages to a much deeper wound.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, you touched on so many elements, routines, the sensory environment of displacement,
Hmm.
food and nutrition needs, loss of caregivers, and support systems. I think that you captured very well what people are facing right now. And I just wanted to pick one element of that and ask a follow-up question.
Sure.
One story that I saw was a mother of two autistic children talking specifically about the impact of the weaponization of starvation on her children. And she described how she was witnessing them wasting away because, um, they basically stopped eating. They were displaced, living in a tent, and stopped eating, and she was unable to source the kind of like particular foods that she knew that they would eat. And I think we've seen throughout this genocide, we've seen disabled children on the front lines of the malnutrition crisis. We've seen that these children are the first to be affected by acute malnutrition, and they've also been the first to die of starvation. So is there anything else that you could share about the role of food and nutrition in all of this?
Yeah, I mean, the weaponization of food aid has, like you said, absolutely disproportionately affected people with disabilities, including autistic children who, very often do rely on specific diets. And so, um, y- yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have any more to add except to say that the the ways in which also the media have captured pictures and sort of how people have sort of like debated how parents are caring for their children and things like that have just been really um, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say the word, but it's been upsetting because I think it really demonstrates sort of the ableism as well that's involved in all of this, right? And sort of like people's right to, I mean, everyone has a right to food and to safety and sort of just like how people are sort of debating whether or not that children with disabilities or people with disabilities in general have a right to access all of these things that they really need in order to survive has just been really discouraging.
Yeah, I've had the same reaction to that whole
Yeah.
conversation. So I really appreciate your comments there. Um, and then I also wanted to ask you how being in the US Academy space, how do you see solidarity with Palestine and with Palestinians from in the space of disability justice research in the US? And what would you like to see from academic and healthcare communities in the global north?
Yeah, that's a really important question. I mean, in the disability justice just teaches us that struggles against oppression are all interconnected. So, liberation has to be collective. Um, but frankly, I've been deeply disappointed by the lack of meaningful action from mainstream global disability organizations about the genocide in Palestine, but really about any mass disabling events that occur outside of the global north. I mean, I've seen a few statements of concern, but I haven't seen any sustained advocacy, mobilization of resources that we have, and most importantly, the pressure that needs to be put on policymakers or other decision makers to dismantle the structures that are perpetuating harm against people with disabilities, or even at a minimum, just to prioritize disability inclusion and humanitarian responses. And so this silence has been maddening to me, given the scale of disablement that we've witnessed in this genocide, which of course are in direct contrast to like the principles that these organizations are claiming to uphold. Here in the US, it's been challenging. I mean, I've seen some growing awareness among disability scholars and advocates about the need to stand in solidarity with Palestinians and, recognizing how occupation and war amplify barriers for people with disabilities. But more often than not, unfortunately, this solidarity remains symbolic. It's not structural. So I'd really like to see a shift from like words to action. So, how can we integrate Palestinian voices into what we're doing and advocacy and research and so on. How can we fund collaborations between scholars and practitioners in the region and how can we ensure that humanitarian and health responses really prioritize disability inclusion. I mean, we hear the healthcare community and academic community in the global north, we have a ton of resources and influence, and we can and we absolutely should demand that policy changes not only that perpetuate harm against people in general, especially people with disabilities, but they also take away needed resources. So kind of going back to like the interrelated struggles, I mean, here in the US, I mean, we have people who are facing really extreme levels of poverty. They do not have health insurance. They just have basic barriers to healthcare every single day. And I think we should all be asking ourselves, what benefit is there to spending billions of dollars on bombs when those resources can fund healthcare and education and community supports and et cetera. And so it's really like true solidarity means really challenging those priorities that we like our funding priorities here in the US, for example, because justice for Palestinians and justice for disabled people everywhere are just part of the same fight against oppression and systemic neglect that are facing marginalized people everywhere. And I mean, we all have the obligation to use whatever platforms we have, not just to speak, but to work towards dismantling those systems that perpetuate harm.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Very well said, and hopefully this conversation can play a small role in uplifting the importance of connecting these issues and continuing to put pressure on, especially right now when, a lot of the conversation is saying ceasefire or using peace. And we know that the genocide is ongoing and the conditions of genocide continue on the ground. So we have about 15 minutes left. I want to give an opportunity for questions for our panelists. And I also want to drop in the chat a couple of links that Mohamad and the Severed team had shared as well. I wanted to drop these earlier. So for anyone who would like to support the Severed campaign and mutual aid for Palestinian families in Gaza, I just dropped the link there. And also the team has recommended Al Mawasi Clinic as a potential resource to support. It's a clinic that is run by Palestinians and emerged in response to the Israeli invasion of Nasser Hospital and serves about 1,600 Palestinians a day with free health care and connecting them with medications and things like that. And let's see, Jordana, I wanted to also invite you if there's anything you want to say about the Severed campaign and what the current status of your work there is.
Yeah, absolutely. So Severed, which is the film we all just watched, and some of you might have only watched part of it, also has what we call an impact campaign. So along with making the film, Mohamad and also a team of folks at Donkeysaddle Projects, which is one of the co-producers of the film, along with the Nation Mag and 972 magazine in partnership with Just Vision, have been doing events like this, as well as many other kinds of events to bring this story
Sorry,
conversation.
sorry, Jordan, to interrupt, but can you
Yeah,
please, your voice
slow
is
down.
really, yeah, no, no, not, don't slow down, just your voice is, I can't hear you like properly.
Okay, is this better if I'm closer?
It is actually a little bit
Okay,
better.
I'll stay. I'm not sure why it's so soft, but hopefully this works. Um, Let me know if you need me to talk louder. So, um, the campaign for the film has been this project to bring Mohammed's story and the conversation of disability and health justice in Palestine to as many communities as possible. This is one beautiful example. But for all of you who are on the call today, you all have communities you can bring this story and conversation to, and we'd love to support that. I dropped a link in the chat, and I'll drop it again with a form you can fill out if you want to bring the film and this conversation maybe to your group in your neighborhood, maybe to your university. If you work in any health or public health spaces, we're also really interested in trying to speak in more public health spaces about this issue and this intersection, and hope people really start to understand what's going on in Gaza and Palestine as a health issue, as a disability justice issue. As Sarah said, we're not seeing enough people in those spaces connect those dots. So I encourage you all to really think about your community, and who you might know, who might be part of that conversation. Yeah, we also have, if you reach out to us, we have a discussion guide and other resources to help you facilitate that conversation, or host a screening in your home, in a theater, in your classroom. And just really appreciate you all being here and witnessing this story and continuing to have the conversations and keeping them going.
Thank you so much, Jordana. I'm turning to the questions now. I see a question from Carol asking if anyone knows Atfaluna Society for the Deaf in Gaza or have any connection. And I think that Omar has dropped off, so I'm not able to ask. I would have loved to ask him this, but I will say that Visualizing Palestine consulted with Atfaluna when we were creating the visual, The Carpenter's Hands Speak, and that visual talks about Atfaluna. Hashim Ghazal taught at Atfaluna in their vocational training program. And so we were able to connect with some of their staff. They're facing obviously very difficult conditions right now as well. A lot of the staff are displaced, and some of their facilities have been damaged, but they continue to work, and they've put out also some surveys, some assessing the needs of disabled communities. And one of the things that they found was that I believe it's 83% of people with disabilities in Gaza have lost assistive devices since the start of the genocide. So this could be anything from like a wheelchair to hearing aid to, also a lot of times if somebody has hearing aids, they can't obtain the batteries to, operate those hearing aids or other devices that require batteries. Even something as simple as glasses, in Omar on Deaf Relief Gaza's page, Omar shares a story of a deaf man whose glasses were broken, and how this disrupted his ability to lip read and to see people who were signing. So that's some of the important work that Atfaluna continues to do. And so then we have Phil. Has BP produced any visuals on disability in Palestine? Thank you, Phil, for that question. We have, and we dropped two of them in the chat on Severed Steps and Let the Carpenter's Hands Speak. Disability justice was one of our themes this year that we wanted to focus on, and we'll likely continue to keep that theme on our radar and develop further stories on that. And yes, those are available to use and print and distribute in any way that you might be able to use them. Caitlin is asking a question for Sarah. Are there any programs for therapists to virtually offer sessions to children, families, and especially disabled people in Gaza?
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of a lot of different efforts to do that and sort of, to have people like, as I said, I'm here in the United States, like people here in the United States to kind of connect and provide some resources and training. And those are important, so I don't want to minimize them at all. But I do want to just like, I mean, I think that the early part of this panel, where you could see how hard it was for Omar to connect, and just really emphasize the challenges that people have, not just in Gaza, but also on the West Bank, is too sometimes with just connection, virtual connection. And so, while I think these resources can be like helpful, they're in no ways sufficient for really meeting the needs. And so I think that, alongside trying to maybe do some virtual sessions and things like that, that's well and good, but also thinking about other ways that we can help to support people in Palestine. So, like the organizations that have been dropped in the chat are doing really good work. And so, like, can we actually support those organizations who are already there, who already can speak the language, who understand the culture, who understand the context? Like, can we support those structures, even those, when we're talking about Gaza, that they're, many of them have been, um, pretty much decimated, but there are still different structures and organizations that are still working in Gaza. And like, can we think about ways to support them? And so people can really get those more widespread, as opposed to, just like someone from the US, hopping onto Zoom and doing a quick session. Again, I don't want to minimize that. I mean, it's great that people do that, but I think there are maybe other ways to make a bigger impact.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, that's really insightful. Quinn is asking, what do you see as the role of disability justice organizers and researchers on this issue and in this movement? And maybe, Sarah, I'll direct that question to you first as well, and then we can also see if Mohamad has any input.
Yeah, I mean, we all have a role, right? I mean, I think, speaking is a really important one. We shouldn't shy away from talking about the structures that are perpetuating these things that are happening, whether they're in Palestine or wherever they are. And so I think there's also oftentimes a lack of consistency, and even maybe talking about sort of injustice somewhere here in the United States, but not applying those exact same things to injustice in other places. And so, I mean, consistency is important. Using our voices are important. Speaking up, collaborating with people who have the lived experience is so important. I think like when people are talking, for example, in the US about Palestinians, but there are no Palestinians at the table, that's really concerning. And so, making sure that people are connected and involved. Um, and yeah, I mean, I could probably go on. I think there's a lot of different things that we can do. I think the worst thing that we can do is just not to do anything. And so, I think there's a lot of things that can be done, and unfortunately, people, due to fear or other things like that, just haven't wanted to say anything.
And Mohamad, I also want to invite you if you have any thoughts on the role of disability justice activists outside of Palestine. Um, and Mohammed, if you could translate if that's possible.
Sure. Yeah, so محمد بيسألوك هم حركة العدالة المتعلقة بالإعاقة ودورها في التواصل معاك ومساعدتك ومساعدة الناس اللي عندها إعاقة. شايف دورهم إيه بالظبط وإزاي يقدروا يساعدوا الناس؟
النت حلق عندك عيد.
محمد معلش،
سامعني؟
أنا كنت على. أيوه، سامعك. بقول لك هم بيسألوك عن حركة العدالة المتعلقة بالإعاقة ودورها إزاي تقدر تساعدكم وتساعد الناس اللي عندهم إعاقة. شايف دورهم إزاي؟
الإعاقة مش لازم تكون الإعاقة مش في البدن دائما، يعني مش في الجسم إنسان، الإعاقة في العقل. ما دام الإنسان ما جاتوش الإعاقة في العقل هو قادر يعمل. فهي المساعدة الوحيدة إنه يكمل تعليمه، ينشئ مستقبله، لأنه بلا مؤاخذة قدامه حياة، قدامه جواز يعني. ما فيش يعني، مش هيقدر يتجوز إذا هو ما عندوش وظيفة. ما يعني طالما عقله شغال تقدر تساعده في تكميل تعليمه، يفتح شغل، زي ما أنت عارف، لأنه فقد إشي من جسمه، مش هيكون زي الإنسان الطبيعي طبعا.
But yeah, so Muhammad is saying this ability, if you lose a limb or something, it doesn't really affect your brain as long as it's not like something that affects their brain and affects their intellectual capability, then they're able to carry on with their life. They can continue on their education. They can pursue a career that's useful for them. They can fight for life. So maybe they can help these organizations. They can help people with disabilities by opening up projects that help them, make a living.
Thank you. We are out of time at this point. Um, Thank you so much to our panelists, to Sarah, to Omar, to Mohamad for sharing your stories, your experiences, your insight so generously with us today. And thank you, Saif and Danielle, for interpreting, and Mohammed as well for making this conversation more available to more people. We are going to be sending out a follow-up email with some of the links that we've shared today. And if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Visualizing Palestine, and we'll try and do what we can to connect you. And I want to leave off with just something that Muhammad's mother actually said in the film, which is, God willing, we'll meet in better times. And to remind us all that, hopefully we will meet in better times and that we all can play a role in bringing about those better times. So thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
See you.